All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast. I am super excited. I have Alison here from Cabana Wax. We're going to get into all things waxing and how she has become a female entrepreneur here in Huntsville. So stay tuned. All right. Welcome, Alison, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I've been wanting to have you on this podcast for a while because I recently got into waxing probably 6 months ago.
Okay.
Obviously, try Cabana because it's the only what I consider wax studio here in Huntsville. I did live in Nashville for a while, and they had the European Wax Company, which we're going to get into that. But I want to know your background. I want to know what led you to develop this studio here in Huntsville.
I'm just a consumer. That's it. I'm not an esthetician or a cosmetologist, so I have never waxed anyone.
Oh, wow.
My background is I'm a lawyer.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Yeah, so cool.
I am actually a lawyer. I was a small business defense lawyer. And so that's how I started learning about small business. And so I went to law school, and then I got out and I was working at a large corporate firm here in town. And all of my clients for the cases that I was helping on were small businesses. And I worked long hours as a lawyer, which is really typical, but I was finding that I really liked the subject matter of what my clients were doing more than what I was doing.
Okay.
And I love the law, but I just really, found a passion for small business. And so, one night my ex-husband and I were walking in the neighborhood, which we did, after work each night. And I told him that I know we had gone to law school together and done this, whole lawyer thing, but I was very interested in quitting my job.
That's amazing. I honestly condone anyone that does that because if I had the balls to do that, I would develop a thyroid clinic here in town because it's such needed. But so go you for doing that.
Well, it was good. I mean, he was very supportive of me. And so we had this talk, and he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, actually, I want to do Brazilian waxing. And he didn't have any sort of weird reaction. He was like, okay, why? And I said, because the market's wide open in Huntsville. When we moved here, I believe it was the summer of 2017. At the time, there were no dedicated Brazilian wax places.
Right.
You had your big spas that offered it kind of as one of their many services, but nowhere that specialized in Brazilian waxing. And so when I lived in Birmingham, just like you're talking about living in Nashville, there are dedicated waxing places, but there wasn't that in Huntsville. And anywhere you went in a big spa, not only were they not specializing, they took a long time and it cost a lot of money in a way that even for me as a lawyer with my lawyer salary, it was hard to make that, a monthly routine. Pricing it really high makes it a special occasion or a vacation service. So I decided that, we had an opportunity to open a business where we could offer affordable Brazilian waxing quickly, and I could use my, background in law and small business to, really try to do it in an excellent way where we had a positive work environment and, just kind of bring quality that, you may normally see in a speed waxing environment. I really, I wanted it to be quality.
Yeah. So that was one of the questions we had from our consumers, how you created the environment at Cabana, because I've been personally, and like I was telling you before we started, before we did this podcast, I wanted to try other things out, other waxers, just so I could have that experience to talk about. Because let's be honest, getting a Brazilian wax is not the most comfortable thing.
Yeah.
And you want to feel like, okay, this is not a big deal. Let's just go in here. Let's get it done. Because it is painful to a certain degree. And you want to have that relationship with your waxer, if you will, because it is a vulnerable situation. So how did you create that culture? What goes into training your waxers to make it a positive environment and comfortable, if you will? Not to mention your studios are gorgeous.
Thank you.
Gorgeous and clean. It doesn't feel like I'm going into a medical situation. Yeah. It feels like okay, this is a relaxing, calming environment.
Yeah. So one thing, my staff is allowed to wear whatever they want.
Awesome.
Obviously with very extreme parameters, right. But they are not allowed to wear scrubs. And the reason for that is I didn't want the situation to feel medical. I want people to come to Cabana and feel like they're in the company of friends, and you're kind of not at a friend's house, but you're with friends getting waxed in a very calming environment. We talk a lot during training, not only about, waxing technique, but also bedside manner. And so, there is kind of a thing like, I rode horses when I was little, and the horseback riding instructor used to always talk about how, the horse can sense your fear. And I tell the waxers, the person on your table can sense your fear.
Right.
And if you're not confident in projecting like, hey, I know what I'm doing, and we make sure they know what they're doing. I mean, they do tons of waxes. If they don't already come to us experienced, they do tons of waxes before we ever have them working on paying clients. And everyone who works for me waxes me as their final test.
Okay.
Before. And usually that's why I don't hire people close together, just because I only have so much hair on my body. But so we do that. And then I try to keep the environments really happy. We've been blessed in the sense that we've had a lot of business, so my staff doesn't really have to compete with each other. There's not a sense like, when you're at a receptionist and it's like the hostess, is pressured to sit, tables in this waiter section or whatever. It's not like that. People book who they want online, or they can choose, any available, or, the receptionist just kind of does it randomly or by whatever time the client needs. So there's not competition. And, I'm pretty traditional in business. One way that I am not traditional is I don't believe the customer is always right, and I don't put the customer first. And I know that's really controversial, but I put my staff first.
I was just telling you that before we sat down, that you made a post maybe 3-4 weeks ago where someone was rude to your receptionist, and you posted like, I'm not going to tolerate that. You don't have to come back. That's fine. And I appreciate that as a consumer, because I worked for a large corporation that literally I did nothing wrong, and I had patients yelling at me, but the corporation told the patient they were right. And that made me feel like, wow, you really don't care about me. So no, even if that is unconventional, I commend you for that. Like when you posted that, I was like, wow, that gave me so much more respect for her, that she is standing up for her employees. Because obviously that's going to keep retention, and your employees are going to be happy. And then if employees are happy, your customers are ultimately happy.
And that's my belief. I mean, if you take care of your staff, they will take care of your customers. I can't take care of my customers. I'm not a waxer. And so my job is, we don't use managers. Really, the waxers are self-managing, and they're very independent and professional. And really, there's not very much for me to ever tell them except to pass along customer feedback. But, my whole thing is supporting them. I provide them, their supplies. I help them. If there is a client issue, I market them, I do those things. And so I'm kind of like their cheerleader. I put a team together, and then I say, these are the best girls in town. Come and see them. And I know I sleep well every night knowing that every person that works for me can wax very well. I really believe they're the best waxers in Alabama. I mean, if not in the Southeast, they're great.
So I've been to, and we're going to kind of get into this because it's a little controversial. I don't know if it's controversial, but people want to know. So I've been to Katie. Love Katie at your place. She's just very personable. And I think when I went in first, I was very nervous because I had tried Brazilian waxing in high school with my friend who was in cosmetology school.
Yeah.
If Amy listens to this podcast, love you, honey. But she ripped me a new one. And skin came off. She did one side. I was like, we're done. Yeah, we're not doing this again. So I was telling Katie that story, and she was like, that's not going to happen here. And it was not that experience. Obviously, the first time I got waxed was pretty painful. And she told me, she was like, your first wax is pretty painful. Yeah. Your skin follicles will get thinner, all that thing. I'm very fortunate because I am in the medical field, and I have, doctor friends that will prescribe me prescription strength lidocaine cream. So I apply that, and it does make the pain way more tolerable, especially now that I've been doing it for 6 months. So the hair does thin. But guys, if you're also getting lidocaine cream over the counter, it's not doing anything. Stop wasting your money. You really need that prescription strength that's going to seep into the skin. That's just my medical background knowledge.
Well, that's our experience too. We actually, I'm not talking about what you're doing, but we hate when people come in with over-the-counter stuff, because all it's going to do is create a greasy mess, and it just adds time to the service because my girls have to spend time cleaning them up.
Right.
And then it doesn't really help because it's very
Right.
surface level, and that doesn't help when you're removing hair from the root.
Like, I'm
So.
talking about like medical grade. If I'm going in to get a skin biopsy,
Yeah.
this is the stuff they give you
Yes,
so that you can't feel the cut.
Yeah, very different.
Right. Very different. And I'm just going to be honest, and guys, don't follow my advice, but lidocaine cream and one margarita, you don't feel a thing. Not condoning alcohol, but just saying one margarita in, you feel nothing. But, so sugaring is a big thing now. I'm not even sure what made it popular, probably TikTok. I don't know. So a lot of people want to know, what's the difference in sugaring and waxing? Why do waxing versus sugaring, vice versa?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
All right. So waxing has been around for a long time. I personally, I'm 34 next month, and I've been waxing once a month for about 13 years. Obviously, person to person or place to place, you can have varying results, but I've honestly never had a bad waxing experience. I've never had my skin lifted. I've never had that happen. Waxing is completely safe. Obviously, you have to control the temperature. That's something that's really big at Cabana.
I will say, when my friend Amy was training when she did, so obviously it might have been a better experience if she was experienced in it.
No, I mean, no, there are places that lift your, we have people come to us all the time that tell us that they've had, and it's not just about the waxer's competency. It's, it can be about, if the client is on Accutane.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that when you're on Accutane, you're not supposed to wax for a year after
I did not know
finish
that.
Accutane. Yeah. And then, with facial waxing, if you use retinol in your, medical grade skincare type stuff, you're not supposed to wax your eyebrows for 3 days after you stop retinol.
Good to know.
So there are just certain contraindications and stuff. And so it's being knowledgeable about that. That's why I say don't ever wax in a nail salon, because there's no situation I have ever seen in my life or heard about where you walk into a nail salon and you're presented with a consent form. And I'm a lawyer, and I don't view our consent form. Can I cuss?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't view it as like cover your ass. It's not like that to me. My whole thing is I want to prevent something bad from happening in the first place. I want you to leave Cabana better than how you came in. We don't ever want to hurt you. And I will quickly, forego whatever revenue you were going to bring in to prevent something bad from happening. So, anytime you go into a nail salon, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to get my lip waxed or my eyebrows waxed. If you're not handed a consent form where they're asking these questions about, have you been using retinol, anything like that, that's not anywhere you want to get waxed. Don't wax anywhere where you're not presented with a consent form.
That makes sense. I mean, I never thought about it like that, but that makes sense. And Katie, and I reference Katie because that's who I go to at your studio. Yeah. She, when I do wear my lidocaine cream, I have very sensitive skin. It turns a little pink. And she was even like, your skin's pink. Is this okay? I was like, yes, it's completely normal. This is a normal reaction. This is a vasodilator or vasoconstrictor. It's going to do that. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So, but she does. She was like, are you sure this is okay? I was like, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that in her.
Yeah.
So with the sugaring, what I experienced, because again, like I said, I went and had different experiences. So there's a new sugaring place here in Huntsville. I'm sure there's other sugars, just like there's other waxers. And I'm sure it's the same with waxing. It's all on experience, the knowledge, the base that you have. But what I Googled from what I wanted to know, when I went into this, was everyone says sugaring hurts less than waxing. From my experience, sugaring was the most painful thing I did, even with my lidocaine cream. Yeah. And I think that was because they kept applying it over the skin because they say that you can. They say that you can. That's the difference with sugaring and waxing, is what the lady at the place told me, is that you can continue to apply it over the skin, but they're getting less hair, and it's all about the pressure they're applying with their hand because they have to get the sugar to stick. Yeah. So that's one difference they told me. Another difference they told me was with waxing, you apply, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you apply against towards the hair and then pull away from the follicle. Correct. So they told me that breaks the hair and that causes ingrowns. And then they said that sugaring, you applied away from the hair and pulled with the hair growth, and that decreases ingrowns. Well, in my experience, I got way more ingrowns with sugaring than I did waxing. So that's just what they say. And I'm sure everyone's skin is different. Everyone tolerates everything different. But from my experience, I just went back to Cabana. I tried sugaring 3 times. I gave it 3 times. I didn't just give it 1 time. I was like, well, let me just give it 3 times. Yeah. And I personally, sugaring's not for me.
Yeah.
It's more expensive, which makes no sense because they market it as an organic product, less ingredients, no wax strips. And I'm like, well, then why is it more expensive? That's what I was like.
Yeah.
You say you're using less stuff for the environment, but you're charging more.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah, I don't talk about this a lot because, you know, my issue with the sugaring places in town is that it seems like their whole business model is based on throwing shade at waxing. Waxing has been around for a long time. So if you think about ice cream, everyone loves ice cream. Ice cream's been around for a long time. Sugaring is like Dippin' Dots. You know, it's like a novelty.
Yeah.
It's not a classic modality of hair removal. So, you know, they're just trying to carve out a niche for themselves. I have waxers, and have had waxers in the past, who have worked for, you know, sugaring chains even briefly. They don't like sugaring. They don't like doing sugaring because it doesn't make as much sense to them as waxing from the provider standpoint. They don't want to be sugared. I've been sugared one time. It was many years ago, way before I owned Cabana Wax. It was at the LA bikini chain in Mobile, where I'm from. I was just home for a holiday, and I went, and that was the only time in my life that I have not been able to get through a Brazilian wax.
Yeah, the first time I did sugaring, I went for a Brazilian, and she got like the bikini done. I said, "We're done here."
Yeah.
She goes, "Really?" I said, "We're done. I can't even finish this."
Yeah, I'm not a tap out kind of person. I'm really
not either.
like there to just get it done or whatever. And I, you know, certainly I never go into or any type of environment like trying to show my ass or anything, but I just couldn't get through it. It was really painful. And that was the only time I've ended an experience. Now I've never been, you know, sugared anywhere in Huntsville, but you know, it's difficult for me to wrap my mind around a business model. I mean, if you look at their websites and stuff, their whole marketing thing is waxing is bad. Not sugaring is good. It's waxing is bad. And
well, when I went into my appointment, that was the first thing, like, oh, have you done this before? And of course I was like, well, no, I've done waxing. And then that's when it was like, well, did you know? And like, cause me and Katie talk about it when I get waxed, and she was like, well, you know, how did it go? Like, she was never negative. She was like, how did it go? And I told her, I said, the only thing I didn't like is it was very negative. Like, and like I don't know if I told you this, but I know I told Katie, I said, and when I went in, I said, I love how, again, your place super clean. I feel very comfortable. There's a towel provided. Mm-hmm. The door's not swung wide open. When I went into this place, like, they were like, okay, get up on the table, spread eagle, no towel, no nothing. They're just flopping the door open. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm at the OBGYN office.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, now this is already uncomfortable.
Right. No,
So,
I get that.
Yeah.
And it's really just, you know, and you're never going to see my girls talking about that. If you ask them about it, they will tell you what they know of like the difference in technique and stuff. But, you know, I don't even, the great thing about the girls who work for Cabana, they don't really have to be told this. I mean, what we do is good work. You know, we don't hurt people, and there's just no need to, like, they don't run their mouths. There's no need to do it because our service speaks for itself. The results and, you know, the safety, it speaks for itself. And so there's no need to throw another modality of hair removal under the bus. And so, you know, it like I said, it's difficult for me to respect a business that is totally based on throwing another business under the bus.
And this is just all my experience. Like I said, like, this was my experience going, and that's what I do on my podcast. I share my experience. I've never had that experience at Cabana. Everyone's been always super nice, super professional. And even when I talked to Katie about my experience with sugaring, she never once said anything negative. Yeah. She was just like, okay, well, I hate that happened to you, you know, thanks for coming back. Yeah. It's just like, obviously, like, wasn't going to be like joining in the conversation, like how sometimes, you know, we girls do. I've done it. We're like, let me talk about that with you. She was never like that. She was very professional.
She is
very professional. And so, speaking of, I heard a story. I never personally went to European Wax Company when I was in Nashville, but I heard this other like influencer say she went and they ripped her skin off and she had like a horrible reaction. Is there a difference in that kind of chain versus Cabana? I know, like, you make sure everyone knows you're not a chain. Like, you created this company. It's Huntsville. It's locally owned. It's female owned. Do you know if there's a difference or if it's just the fact that it's a chain modality?
Yeah, there are a few differences. I mean, the main difference is that they use all hard wax. It's just part of their business model. They manufacture their hard wax in-house to reduce cost. And, you know, traditionally, classically, waxing is done with both soft wax and hard wax, especially in the Brazilian area, because your hair is not the same all around. Like on your bikini line, your hair is typically thinner. And, you know, for areas, you know, on your face, like where there's just peach fuzz and it's not that thick, coarse hair, soft wax, which is the wax that you apply with a stick and then apply a strip to remove it. That's typically better for, you know, thinner hairs and peach fuzz and stuff like that. But for thick, coarse hair, we do want to use hard wax, and they use hard wax everywhere.
Okay.
I've been waxed at European Wax in North Carolina, again, before I ever, you know, had Cabana, and I got a Brazilian and I had my eyebrows done, and I had hair left behind in both areas because hard wax is not, it's just not capable of getting all of the hair. And so some people believe that hard wax is, you know, more comfortable, but, you know, I think it really comes down to technique, and it also comes down to, you know, whether you want to leave with an incomplete job for the sake of, okay, like that was slightly more comfortable. I mean, I think if you're going to do a Brazilian wax, like, I mean, for me, I want to leave like a Sphynx cat.
Me too.
Right. You know? And so like if my girls tweeze, I mean, they take the time. We typically allot 30 minutes for a Brazilian wax. At European Wax, from what I understand, for girls that, you know, work for me or have worked for me in the past that have worked for European Wax, and I've had a lot, they allot, you know, like 7 to 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so they call them lunchtime waxes. And so it's really like in and out, which I appreciate the, you know, the convenience factor and stuff, but they don't offer to tweeze. It's not as much about thoroughness as it is about like hurting people in and out. And that is the business model. For me, I want us to be quick. I want people to be able to come on a lunch break. I'm very serious about our schedule and about our cancellation and late policies. Like if you have an appointment at 11:30, you will be in the room being waxed at 11:30 or before, if it's, you know, if it's our choice, you know, unless you come late or something like that. But, you know, I'm about convenience, but you also have to deliver a good product, and you have to deliver the kind of product that's going to want to make people want to come back. You can't just rush through it. And I think like, again, like this is the lawyer part of me, you know, like checking your work. I mean, I used to basically be a professional writer. And so like editing and going back, I mean, the girls go back, they look, they check, they offer to tweeze. Some people don't want to be tweezed in that area, and that's totally fine. But, you know, we are there and we're prepared to do our job, which is, you know, if you want a Brazilian wax, that means all the hair is gone from front to back and in between. And, you know, it's not about just like on to the next one for us. We try to like take enough time to do a good job on each appointment.
And I know we're talking a lot about Brazilians, but obviously that's the most popular wax, I would assume, that y'all get.
It's like 90% of our sales.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about tips and tricks, if you will.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips and tricks to not get ingrown hairs? Or like I've heard maybe dry brushing, exfoliating maybe a couple days before. What are your tips and tricks to not get ingrown hairs?
Yeah, for ingrowns, there are things that you can do before and after. So, you know, as far as before, like you're saying, exfoliating, dry brushing is fine, or using a sugar scrub or a loofah or a washcloth. What we typically tell people is to do it twice in the week leading up to your wax. And don't do it the day before or the day of, because waxing itself is exfoliating and you don't want to harm your skin barrier. So it's just, it can be too much if you're like, you know, you don't want to be sugar scrubbing that area the morning of your wax or anything like that. But just in the week leading up, just try to twice. And then, you know, I do it all the time. I wear leggings and stuff, or like, you know, bike shorts and everything. You don't really want to do that. You don't really want to wear that. You know, leaving a wax. And it's not from a pain standpoint or a discomfort standpoint for me. It's really just that your pores have just been opened. And so they're kind of vulnerable and you want to let them breathe. Any sort of thing where you're applying friction, especially like horizontal friction on those pores, is going to promote ingrowns. And so that's why we say, you know, don't have sex for 24 hours, you know, things like that, because you don't want any friction in that area. We also don't want a lot of sweating. And so I would say, you know, if you're going to work out, go home and take a shower and then get waxed. Don't, you know, get waxed and then head to the gym. Not only because of the clothing, but also because we don't want a lot of sweating. We're trying to keep the pores kind of, that are vulnerable at that time kind of clean. And, we don't want to do any sort of horizontal friction activity for at least 24 hours.
Okay. Now, also, I know some people have difficulty with the grow out period. Yeah. And then is there anything, which I have this issue sometimes, like my top hair grows slower than the bottom. And like, so when I get waxed, it's not smooth as a Sphynx. And I'm like, oh, so do I need to go longer to get that top hair in the same growth cycle? Or what's the tips and tricks if people are like, I just cannot stand this grow out?
I don't know if there's a tip or a trick for that. I mean, we tell people 4 weeks, and really it could be, 4 or 5 weeks. And the reason we say that is because your growth cycle, for most people is somewhere between 30 and 40 days. And so that's why, like, I've never waxed or shaved my arms or anything, but that's why I don't have hair on my arm as long as my head hair, is because it grows up to a certain length, and then that's the natural length, and then it stops. And so, when you wax, you want to get your hair to the end of its growth cycle and then like wax it and remove it from the root. And then you're going to have a good period of time, at least, a week or two, where the growth that's occurring is just under the surface. And so you're not going to see it at all. And then, once it passes the surface, you'll still have, another 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks worth that you need to grow out before you get it. I don't really have, that's one of the things about me is, I love my business. Obviously, I want us to be successful. I want us to stay busy, but I am not someone who is going to try to talk someone into waxing.
Right.
That is not anything I do. That's not anything. I mean, that's part of our training is, I tell our receptionist, reception training is obviously different from waxer training, but one thing I tell the receptionist is if you have somebody that calls you and they're like, I'm so scared, or I don't want to grow the hair out or whatever, we provide the information and then they make the choice. Because what I hate the most is when someone who clearly does not want to be waxed comes in and gets waxed, because those are the people that are like yelling, cussing in the rooms, and we don't allow that. Like, I will go knock on the door and be like, hey, like, it's totally fine. I know it's like, hard to get through, but you're going to have to kind of like quiet down, or we'll have to end the service, because we're not that place.
Yeah.
Movies, TV shows kind of make Brazilian waxing this big dramatic thing.
Yeah.
And, Cabana's just not that place. And so, yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. Now, so what is your second most common waxing area that's not the Brazilian area?
Eyebrows and underarms.
Okay.
Probably eyebrows and then underarms, but yeah, definitely brows. And it's really weird to me. I have like truly some of the best brow waxers I have ever encountered in my life working at Cabana. I mean, I really do. I mean, I work reception at least one day a week, and I see them come out after their services and I'm like, damn, they look really good. And they don't take too much. We're really conservative with our brow wax. And so we're about, right now, thick, natural
we are not
brows.
the 90s anymore.
No, not at all. And so, we're really just about cleaning up and kind of sharpening those lines so that everything looks really great. And, it's good in your professional and personal life. I mean, because when I see someone, even in my professional life who has like really good, like well manicured brows, I'm like, all right, like you've got it together. Like it does say something. And so we see eyebrows a lot.
Okay. But y'all offer full wax. Like you do nose hair. I've done that. I've done the nose hair. Loved it initially, but then it's like, I don't know how to get past that period of that 1 or 2 days where it's like tickling. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't actually. I do the nose hair waxing. I've never had that happen.
Like I don't like. It's like a tickling sensation.
Oh really?
And I'm like, I don't know if I just need to put Vaseline in my nose.
I have no idea. Honestly, because I
love
had
doing
that happen,
it.
But yeah, I mean, everyone's experience could be different. But
like I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved the experience of it. It didn't hurt at all.
No.
I was just like, it just tickled my nose for a couple days, and I was just like, I don't know. I don't know what this is. I would love to do leg hair waxing, but I just can't grow my leg hairs out that long.
Yeah, me too. I don't do leg hair waxing. That that's definitely one of the services on our menu. We have a lot of people that are diehard leg waxers that, you know, they'll grow it out and they'll come in, you know, every 4 to 6 weeks. Cause with leg hair, you know, with Brazilian waxing, we tell people we do not want your hair to be really long. We'll also, you know, just like we'll turn you away if it's too short, we're going to turn you away if it's too long. So for Brazilian waxing, we want your hair a quarter to a half inch.
It hurts more if it's longer.
It does. And we just don't do it. We don't trim in house. It just, you know, you've got to kind of meet us in the middle. You've got to kind of come with some level of preparedness. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but with leg hair, the longer you can get it, the better, because leg hair is notorious for growing in different growth cycles. And so if you know, after 2 weeks, if I didn't shave my legs, I'd be like, oh my God, my legs are so hairy.
Right.
But like if I tried to wax them, I would immediately, within a couple of days, if not the next day, start seeing regrowth, and it, you know, just devalues the money that you spend on a leg wax. So the longer you can go for a leg wax.
See, I can't, because I just have such coarse leg hairs, and like, you know, when you're rubbing them in the sheets, you're just like, ah.
No, I don't do it. I don't do.
I can't. I want to.
Yeah.
I also want to do underarms, but I can't. I just can't grow that out either. How long does underarm hair have to be?
I mean,
long.
ideally like a Brazilian, you know, like a, you know, half inch to a quarter inch. For most people, you know, 3 to 4 weeks is fantastic. Some people can do it at 2 weeks for underarm waxing, but, you know, again, they're going to have regrowth. So
myth or fact, when you're doing any waxing anywhere, I don't know if this is just for the Brazilian area, does the hair truly get thinner?
Yes.
It does?
It really does, as long as you do not shave between, and as long as you do not as long as you don't wait so long between waxes that you're giving your like bulbs in your hair root an opportunity to like stay big and strong, or to like regrow a little bigger, because the whole thing is consistency, right? So like if you're waxing, you know, once a month and you're being consistent, like I said, I've waxed once a month for 13 years and I have very little hair, and the hair that I do have is like, I mean, honestly, it's very thin, very silky. It does not feel like
coarse.
You know, it doesn't. Yeah. I don't have any coarse hair.
That's cool. Yeah. I like that.
So because it grows back less. Like, so there are some places where it doesn't grow at all.
Oh,
and
wow.
then, you know, where it does grow, it's very thin.
Interesting. So would that be a similar model? Because everyone's always like, well, why don't people just do laser hair removal? Well, I did. I did do laser hair removal. It didn't work because I have light hair. So
that's one thing I'm not a fan of. So like I'm sitting here talking about like, I don't like, you know, this is not against any business. Yeah. I don't know a single business, especially in Huntsville, that only does laser hair. So I'm not throwing a business under the bus, but I think that laser hair removal is the biggest crock. I mean,
really?
We have so many clients
that
who
did it.
And
so it comes back?
Absolutely.
So it's the same essentially as waxing?
Yeah. I mean,
so it gets thinner.
It's not the same,
right?
You know, because it'll stay away longer. But the problem is, I have never, I mean, I'm sure there's people out there, but I have never met anyone who has done laser hair removal and successfully had every hair follicle, you know, killed or whatever happens to where the hair cannot, you know, grow back. Because even the people that do have some success with it, they still have patches that grow back. And for me, it's like, if you're going to have a patch, then there's no point. Like,
right.
And so,
because the goal again, Sphynx cat.
Right, right. And so, you know, it's expensive.
That's why we're doing it.
And it's just not something, and I usually see it as a side service. I mean, I'm a business owner, and I understand, you know, that we look for ways to bring revenue into our businesses. And because I don't really know of any businesses specializing, like laser hair removal is our thing, it typically is a side service that's thrown in, you know, just as, you know, easy cash for the business. You know, I'm really not about that. I'm really about specialization and actually like focusing on stuff. In the aesthetics world, I don't like jack of all trades.
Yeah.
I think that people get really good at something, and I think it's worth taking the time as a consumer to find out who's really good at these things, and, you know, go here for your facials or go here for your waxing. And like, you know, I'm not a fan of the one-stop shop.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense. I agree. So let's see. You mentioned your cancellation policy earlier. Will you elaborate a little bit more, just so if people aren't aware? And when you tell us about it, I'm going to give you my 2 cents because I agree with you, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in place.
Yeah. So our cancellation policy is that when you book an appointment with us, we require 24 hours notice of any cancellation or reschedule. Last minute rescheduling or something is the same thing as canceling. There's no difference. So as long as, if you're on our schedule, as long as you let us know 24 hours before that you want to move or cancel, no harm, no foul, it's no problem. But we do require a card on file with every booking. And if you violate the cancellation policy by canceling or rescheduling within 24 hours of your appointment, the card on file is charged for 50% of the total price of the services that you've booked, because you're paying for the privilege of being on our schedule. I'm not saying privilege like, oh, we're so great. I'm saying like that is,
you're taking someone else's spot that could have gotten it or needed it.
Yeah. I mean, it's important, and I have no shame about that. I mean, you take the risk when you book an appointment of, something happening, and we're not monsters. I mean, I'm not going to publish what our safe harbors are.
Yeah,
which,
right. Because people will try to use that.
I mean, obviously, if someone calls and they're like,
I had a death in the family.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like, okay, well, I'm still charging you.
No, not like that.
There's exceptions.
But we have so many people lie that we had someone call one time at the university location a couple of years ago and tell Jane, my receptionist, that she had her daughter call about 10 minutes before her appointment and say that she couldn't come because their house was on fire, like burning to the ground as we were speaking.
Oh,
and
my
then
gosh.
I guess the daughter didn't relay to the mom that she had called and told our receptionist that, because the client who missed the appointment called and said, hey, I missed my appointment, I wanted to reschedule. And Jane was like, isn't your house on fire? And she was just like,
oh my God.
And then you can hear her like asking her daughter, like, did you tell them our house is on fire? So I know people lie, you know, so I'm like,
oh my
I'm not
God.
saying stuff never happens,
Right,
but
right.
I'm a mother too, if someone calls and they're like, my kid is sick, like I'm not going to be a jerk about that, but I try not to like,
you're just saying like when, like, for instance, if I called you and I said, I'm so sorry, I totally forgot that I had a hair appointment, that's on me.
Well, we send the confirmation stuff and everything. And, I understand I've forgotten stuff before too, but I'm also not going to call the business and, dog them for charging me a cancellation policy because I took up a spot on their schedule.
No, I agree.
So,
so that's why I was going to, my little thing is like, I agree with you. I think some businesses that I've worked for in the past, I've told them they need to have a cancellation policy because people are trying to get in. I've been that patient where I've tried to get in. I'm like, hey, put me on the cancellation list. If anyone cancels, call me. Because like with my work schedule, it's all over the place and I only have certain times that I can do things. So if all those times are taken up, then I 1000% agree with you. And at the end of the day, we all have to remember this is a business. You can't just lose money because if people, sure, it was that one person, but what if 20 people did it in the same day?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
In the beginning, for the first 6 months of Cabana, I did not have a cancellation policy and I had staff quit. Because it matters. My business model, I pay my staff hourly and then, the rest of their pay is tips.
Yeah.
And so, when someone doesn't show up, they miss out on the opportunity for tipping. And, when we run their payroll every 2 weeks, a good 40 to 50% of their paycheck is tips.
Right.
And so it's
really,
is a
service.
Yeah. It's very important, to either, timely reschedule your appointment or to just, have that respect and that understanding of like, hey, I took up a spot. And like I said, we're not going to be, jerks if there's a true emergency or something like that. But yeah, there are certain excuses that we don't accept. Like for instance, like if someone calls and they're like, hey, I'm stuck at work. Like that's one thing we don't accept because this is our work.
Right.
And people think that, I think sometimes people think that the girls who work for me are just up there for fun. Like, no, a lot of them have kids. I mean, they're putting food on the table. A lot of the girls who've worked for me over the years have either been single moms or have been the primary breadwinner in their house. And so they're in a career, that can be fun and exciting. And, but it's at the same time, like it's serious to them.
Yeah, for sure. 1000% agree.
And your job, like when you booked this appointment for this time during your work day and then at the last minute decided you couldn't come, like it's just, I understand, but your work is not more important than our work.
Right.
And so as between you and us, you're the one that should bear like the cost of that spot being lost, not us.
Right. I agree. And just being in the medical field, like when I work in offices or clinical offices and someone doesn't show up for their appointment and I I know this is way different, but like I could have went home an hour early and I
Yeah.
waited here for you and you didn't show up. How rude.
Yeah.
You know, so I completely get it. I agree. If that's on me, that's on me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll just eat the cost.
Yeah.
If something happens, it's on me. I'm going to eat the cost of it because
Yeah.
for one, I'm going to feel guilty because it is a service.
Yeah.
So also you offer a membership.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the Cabana membership.
Okay. So it's called Cabana Club. And we are not like, big chains like, with like, for example, like Massage Envy. Like I think you put a card on file and it's charged, or like a gym membership where you have a credit card and it's charged. It's not like that. I have made this as simple as it can be by requiring full prepayment up front. And then there's no like card on file for the, thing. You're not charged once a month. It's a one-time transaction. And so it's $306 and you get 6 months of Brazilian waxing that is discounted. So our typical Brazilian wax is $55. And then with Cabana Club, your Brazilian wax is $40 for each month during those 6 months. And then it includes an $11 tip for your service provider, because that's what 20% is our standard tip that we see. And, it's, what I
still
expect
cheaper.
from my staff.
So that's $51.
Yes.
And that's still cheaper than the $55 without tip.
Right. That's right. So
Yes.
the idea is that if it's our loyalty program, so over the course of 6 months, if you are someone who was already going to come once a month and tip 20%, it'll save you $90. But the other thing that we hear a lot is that people who want to be really good about being accountable for, waxing and stuff, they're like, I've already paid for it. So it's like,
Now
I
gotta
come.
go.
Yeah. And they get through it and they're like, we almost always have, the people who do Cabana Club do it again and again. Cause they're like, they love seeing the results.
I need to do this, I think.
Yeah. Like over the time, like, during the 6 months, they see their ingrowns grow away. It's not just like, the hair getting thinner and easier to remove and the waxing getting less painful. It's also the clearing up of the skin.
Yes.
Because like the first time you get a Brazilian wax, you're not going to look like a porn star. Like you're not, your skin is not going to look completely clear and
I'm
perfect.
6 months in and it's just now starting to get thinner,
Yeah.
grow less. And I'm like, okay, this was actually worth it. Cause those first 6 months I am going to be like, I don't know if this is worth it, but
Right.
I'm going to keep going. Katie told me it's going to get better. She told me it's going to get better, and it finally is getting better.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. The longer you go, it does get better, but you do have to stay consistent.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things that it's not just going to be like the one time and done. And you're like, oh yes, this is the best.
Yeah. Well, it still is. It's still good. It's
Right,
just like
right.
when, for me, when I started, my skin wasn't cleared up, and you have a lot of subsurface hairs. And, while you're going through that process every month of waxing and then exfoliating before your wax and everything, you're bringing all of those little dark spots under your skin that are actually like hairs, ingrown hairs, like you're bringing them up so that your skin can look clear. And so, yeah, it's about commitment.
I agree. And then a couple last questions was, is your waxing ingredients, like, would you say organic? Would you say safe for the skin? Like how everyone's going organic, green, vegan, like.
No,
Okay.
it's not organic, and that really doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, the wax is applied for just a second. It's not like a skincare product where your skin is going to absorb
Yeah.
this. It's, it's not anything like that. And honestly, what you're looking for in wax is a chemical composition that is going to give the wax the right amount of adhesiveness, because it's about getting the hair while also protecting the barrier of your skin. And so believe me, if you're the one on the table, I don't care what kind of hippie you are, like you care more about your skin integrity than you care about, 3 seconds of having that wax sit on the top of your skin. Now, that being said, there's nothing like bad about the wax. For our soft wax, we use an ultra sensitive formula on everyone, so that, we'll frequently see booking notes where people will say, I have sensitive skin.
Okay.
All of our wax is sensitive skin wax.
Okay.
And so because obviously it's not going to hurt someone with regular skin.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But no, I don't think that's a big deal. I think that if someone, I'm not like, dogging that. I think that if someone was concerned about that, they'd be more concerned with like their hair products or their skin products where it's actually sinking in, but it's really not that.
And if you're pregnant, can you get waxed?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get waxed any single day of your pregnancy. I got waxed every month of both of my pregnancies with my children. And I also got waxed. I tried to get waxed like 3 days before they were born, because I was like, I had an unplanned C-section with my son, my oldest child, and then I knew I was going to have one with my second. And you never know what's going to happen during a birth. I don't say that to scare anybody, but you just, one thing you don't want to have to worry about is, maintenance of, your body, yourself or whatever, because, giving birth, you can get hurt, things can happen. And it's really scary.
Well, I've never been pregnant, but I also hear like some of my friends who are like, I can't see down there. I've let my husband shave me. I'm like, nah, no. Not letting someone come near me with a razor.
No, that's really scary. I wouldn't come. I cannot, at this point, I cannot imagine putting a razor in that area on myself. I mean, I really can't. I don't think I have since high school, and I cannot imagine that. But we have a lot of people that just say I can't see. I mean, I got to a point in both my pregnancies where I couldn't tie my tennis shoes. So, it's definitely helpful. And we see a lot of our first timers that come are people in their third trimester that are like, all right, like I just, I can't see anything and I want to just get this taken care of. And it's not about like the doctor or whoever's going to see the birth. It's just that like after they want that to be one less thing they have to worry about. If anything happens, during the birth or they get hurt in any way, they don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I
agree. Now, is it true, fact or myth, it's more painful when you're pregnant?
For me, it was a little bit.
Is it because of hormones or something?
Yeah, I think it is. And it's also the fact that you have increased blood flow during that area.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
The baby and everything down there, that's going on. You're growing a child and there's just a lot more, blood flow and sensitivity. Yeah, I would say that, during the times I was pregnant, it did hurt a little more. It wasn't anything that would have changed me doing it or not doing it. But it was like, ugh. But I will say one thing that's kind of funny is that, during our Brazilian wax includes like the butt crack area.
Yeah.
And that to me is always like the least painful part.
It is for whatever reason.
It's like nothing. But when I was pregnant, it was like I was meeting Jesus. Like it was like that part hurt so bad. Like during pregnancy, I don't know why, but now everyone knows that about me.
So do you have anything that you say when you're getting because I say something crazy, like this guy once was dating. I was like, hey, I'm going to get the cat waxed. Told him that for the first time. He said, you don't have a cat? And why would you get a cat waxed? And I was like, use your brain. Like you use your brain. But now after that, like I'll say that to my friends and stuff and they know what it means now. And they're like, that is, okay, Joanna, like don't say that on Instagram because PETA's going to come after you.
Right.
So is there any funny little things that you hear people say about getting their Brazilian?
I don't. I mean, I don't say anything just because for me, like when I get it done, it's usually because I am checking in on a staff member. Like I'll do kind of like, they're unofficial, but I'll do kind of like audit waxes where I try to alternate who I'm using. So I can just check in on my staff and be the one on their table and just see like, how they're doing. And most of the time I'm talking to them about like how they're doing at work or what's going on in their life or whatever. And so, for me, it's still kind of businessy. Yeah. And so, my husband now, honestly, I don't even know if he like ever notices. I really don't think, I think most people I'm going to go home. My husband's going to be like, oh yeah. And like my husband, I don't think he even he's not noticing at all. So there's nothing that I say. And, it's just it's so businessy to me that, for me, I don't.
Is it awkward for your employees to wax their boss?
I'm sure it is, but I tell them all in the beginning when I hire them, I let them know we're going to do training. We're going to bring in volunteers. What we typically do is we'll get on Instagram and we'll offer, free spots on certain days and times where people can come in, get a free service, and they have one of my experienced waxers there gloved in, ready to help, or participating in the service depending on how far along the trainee is. And, but I tell people that the last thing that we're going to do before you touch a paying client is you're going to wax me. And I always tell them don't worry about it. And during the thing, I usually talk to them the whole time. And for my waxers, I view myself as a cheerleader for them. And so especially the ones that come to me and they're like a blank canvas, like they've never waxed before until Cabana. I actually kind of love that. I mean, there's more training to do, but I love that because we can teach them waxing how we think it should be done. And there's no bad habits to break, anything like that. But, they'll come and, they're like doing the wax on me, and the whole time, like, I'm talking to them and I'm like, that was great. That pull was great. And like, we're talking. And so it's not like we're sitting there in silence and anything like that. And the other thing is, like, I really try to, just, I don't know if friend is the right word. I do,
You sound like an amazing boss.
Thanks.
Like I would want to work for you.
Well, that's, I love them, and they, I have to work through surrogates because I'm not a waxer. And so we have to have a good relationship. We have to have a bond of trust, and I have to provide them, not only the tools and as far as supplies, but the training and the confidence to be able to do this job, and the support and the backup with clients when there's a problem or, some sort of issue like that. But no, I mean, like, I tell them, like, I don't like being called a boss.
Yeah.
If they want to describe that, I tell them they can call me their employer or whatever, but it's really that I'm kind of their administrative assistant. I market for them, I provide them what they need, and I encourage them, or I pass along negative feedback from clients if it happens. Like, I'll privately tell them or screenshot them something I was saying and be like, hey, I just want to, you to know that this was said. So just, download that and, adjust whatever you need to adjust, and let's keep going.
And all your employees are estheticians, correct?
All of them are either licensed estheticians or licensed cosmetologists.
Okay.
So in Alabama, you have to be one or the other.
Oh, okay.
To
I
wax.
didn't know that.
Yes,
because like in Tennessee, I think, is it just willy-nilly? You can do whatever you want,
I
like
don't
hire
believe
someone off the
so.
street.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but in Alabama, it's required that they're all licensed.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. So
I think that helps put people's mind at ease as well, because then that they've been taught and trained prior to coming to you to be taught and trained.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, we have cosmetologists and estheticians. It's nothing against, the cosmetologists that work for me, because anyone working for me right now, I feel fully trust, and, they do a great job. But with aesthetics, cosmetology is hair, and aesthetics is skincare.
Yeah.
And so when you have a knowledge of contraindications or, medicines that don't work with certain things, or skin conditions, or, even blood conditions or heart conditions or whatever, it's not that, the girls that work for me are like in the medical field, but when you have an idea of what, can happen, or what, can go wrong during a wax, it helps you prevent those things from happening. And so I love when they come to me with some sort of skincare background,
right?
Because it's really, for us, it's not just hair removal, it's keeping your skin safe. It's, I say I don't want it to feel medical, but there's a lot of, medical jargon that I use, like bedside manner, or like do no harm, like things like that. I'm like, if we have to stop a service in the middle of it, or we have to turn a client away who's there with their money handed out, I don't care. We will do no harm. If we can prevent it, we won't do it.
That's amazing. So you are located in Twickenham, downtown, and University Drive.
Yes.
Any plans on expanding?
No.
She said no.
No. I mean, at one time, maybe so, but I have a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and I'm on my second marriage, and I'm very much in love with my new husband and our life, and we have a wonderful son and daughter, and having little kids, especially my son, he's always, on top of me. He's wanting to, like, whether he's eating or watching computer or TV or doing anything, they want me. They want, like, my hands, my arms, and everything. And it's hard for me, like, when I'm working, I'm typically on my phone, and my phone is in my hands. And that's where my eyes and my attention are and everything. And I want to be able to be a strong provider for them and everything, but I don't want to blink and be like, I was on my phone doing Cabana Wax stuff the whole time they were little. Yeah. And so for me, I'm very invested in my family. That's right amazing. Now. And so I just can't.
So maybe one day later, 10 years. 15 years.
No, honestly, I don't see it happening.
No, I mean, there's no need to. I think University Drive services Madison, and then the downtown gets like Jones Valley area. Yeah. So you put them in absolutely wonderful places to service everywhere.
Well, I feel like it, if I expanded it, we have a comfortable life, we can do what we want to do, and provide for our kids and everything. And I'm not, trying to be a millionaire or anything. I'm not trying to do that. I want to be a strong, stable provider, and I want to maintain, or I guess retain enough of myself, enough of my energy and my attention to give it to my children. Right. So, yes, there will be no more Cabana Waxes unless, hell freezes over.
Well, you never know, girl. Never say never. So pimp yourself out. Tell everyone where they can follow you, find you, book for waxing. Guys, go get the Brazilian. It's not that scary. It's really not that
Well,
bad.
not guys.
Or, well, you know.
Girls.
But I meant like guys, like lingo.
I know y'all got you guys or whatever.
You
but
guys.
Yes, we don't do guys.
So tell these girls where they can find you. Pimp yourself out.
All right. So on Instagram at the Cabana Wax, on Facebook, we're just Cabana Wax. And then you can just book at cabanawax.com and just make sure you select the location that you want. It defaults to Twickenham, which was our original location. And then you'll have to select University Drive if you want to book there. But yes, and you can always send us a message on Instagram or anything. This is a very closely held small business, and so I'm the only person that runs our Instagram. When you message it, you talk to me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so there's no hired help in that sense. So yeah, so any questions you have or anything like that, feel free.
Thank you so much for coming. I know your time is super valuable, and you got little ones you got to get back to. So thank you so much. This has been informative for me, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Absolutely. Until next time, guys. Bye.